Shout out to Julian Banks. Yes, sir. And I am Big Snoop Dogg.
All right, well, welcome back to another episode of After Hours. I'm your host, Julian Banks. We are here with a very special guest and good friend, founder of BoxyCharm, Yosef Martin, who's serial entrepreneur, active investor, part-time health influencer now a little bit on Instagram. Follow his stories and you'll understand about peptides and everything like that. But yeah, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you for having me, my friend.
But yeah, we met through Nicole Benham. Yeah, shout out Nicole. So she runs Beyond Media, which is media company. Essentially, she has like these tangential arms. She has podcasting, also branding, stuff like that. But she has these like amazing dinner parties that we met at.
That's right.
And it's like she hosts, Eric Weinstein was in the corner playing piano. You had like Naval Ravikant was there, who's like holding court. And then we connected. We've known each other for like 3 years, but we haven't really dove into the story about like how you started BoxyCharm. So if you could jump back, kind of go back to like Merchandise Liquidators with a Z that you started for $375.
Yeah.
And how you kind of pivoted into subscription box model.
Yeah. So, let's take it to the top. I guess my fame to claim with BoxyCharm, and those who don't know what it is, it's a monthly beauty subscription box that I exit in 2020. It was a large exit. And that put me somewhat in the map. And during, if you remember, Clubhouse days, when everyone were locked in at home, sitting down and start connecting, and it was beautiful. It was a good few months that helped us build a nice group of new friends like Nicole and many others, and it was a surreal time. And I think that particular time, because of the panel discussions, you get to perfect your story and understand how the hell did you build that, whatever you built. And it doesn't come from your story; it's from listening to other people telling their stories, and that kind of like ring a bell. Oh yeah, that happened to me too. And it just, you get better in remembering what happened. It's very hard to trace a success, a reason for success. It's a lot easier for failure, but not for success. So in my case, I built BoxyCharm mid 2013, but I fully launched it in 2014 when I understood what I need to do in order to make it. But prior to that, I had a company called Merchandise Liquidators. I started that as an international student. I had a couple $100 and I was just trying to buy and sell stuff. I was working on a solution to figure out how I can make money where you're not allowed to get a job because you're an international student, but yet you can open a company and you can figure it out. So it took me about a year until I found my what. And the what was the most challenging piece, because not only you have no skills at that point, you don't know what skills you need, you don't know how to, nothing. You're just throwing into... until one day I found someone that tells me, you can buy salvage inventory and sell it, and that's where the money is at. If you say, well, if I want to sell this microphone, you can go to a wholesaler and think you can sell this online. The wholesaler already have a store online. That was already in 2003. So I said, how the hell am I going to lift myself from that kind of like low in the food chain to a point where, and they said, well, if you go to something like surplus liquidation, customer return, that's where the opportunity lays, because people who do search for it, it's very hard to define what's in a pallet of clothes from JCPenney that they're stuck with. It's just a lot easier. That was the opportunity. And then the next question I remember I asked was, but how do I get people to know about my business? I don't have money to buy any of those truckloads. They said, well, you don't need the money, and then you do search engine optimization. At the time, I didn't know. Very few knew what it was. And when I understood that, it's just an algorithm that decide who to rank, I'll figure it out. It's an engineer that wrote it. I'm a machine. Just let me do it. So I started doing SEO. In the first few years, I was more obsessed with SEO than the actual business. So the business was making some money to pay the out-of-state tuition and so on, and my living expenses, but I was still living very modest, and I saved penny to penny. It took me a couple years to really hit it that it is just a piece of a recipe. It's just an ingredient in the recipe. Marketing is important, but it's not the whole business. And then you understand that in order for you to truly be successful, because I looked at other wholesale liquidation companies that are doing tens of millions of dollars a year, where I was not, and I outbeat all of them on the search engine position. So obviously that's not what it takes to grow to that size. It takes more than just that. You have to be skilled in more. You need to have more than one skill set. And for the second piece was actually very easy. Get better product. And you learn that your product is better form of marketing than any marketing you're going to do. And I learned that at that time. It's like, how do you get a better product? Well, you need to own the contract and not buy from someone some merchandise that has already the contract. So that taught me a lot. And then the last rule for that particular company was really, if you want to increase your sales, you need to increase your sales force. That was one of those moments that grew the business a little bit more. And the business itself was doing about 10 million in sales at the time when I heard about the new concept for subscription box. It was more in 2012. And I felt I was already a success story because look at me coming from nothing. And I did start with a couple $100, and I did have a typo in the name, Merchandise Liquidators. I did buy the domain with a Z. I only noticed later. Said, oh shit, did I... can I say it over here in the show?
Yeah,
of course, I swear. Okay. So anyway, I ended up running a company with a typo just to show how not important it is, what your name is, what your branding is. If you have an amazing product, everything else gets marginalized. It doesn't really matter. And you can dominate. So I ended up building BoxyCharm later on through that. That was the stem that gave me some skills and big thinking, understanding of how to build a business. And BoxyCharm came after.
So that was the catalyst. So you noticed kind of like an arbitrage opportunity within Merchandise Liquidators. Like you noticed the makeup was kind of overstocked, right? And then, well, not makeup because you actually did.
No, we did makeup over there.
But you did everything. Right?
Actually, makeup in the liquidation prior to BoxyCharm, I was selling a lot of makeup, and it was mostly excess inventory from drugstores. Right. That was L'Oreal, Maybelline, and so on. And that was probably my opportunity to grow from, say, 1 million to 10 million in like 3 years, because most of my competitors were guys that didn't understand makeup.
Okay.
I mean, wholesalers are by default dudes. And now there were some women actually, and they're successful, but I guess they were working with men and they didn't think about the makeup as the opportunity. So it was thinking like the men, because that I assume I'm just, the point is there was not a lot of competition in makeup, but when every time I got makeup, everyone who bought it came back and asked for more and more and more. So, and because there was not a lot of demand, the price was very low for the liquidation of makeup. So I would buy products very cheap and then sell in large masses, and that was the biggest piece of my business. But when you walked in, you couldn't tell, because I'll have everything. I have bedding from Macy's, I have clothing from here, and I had this general merchandise. It was a warehouse stocked with merchandise, and you would know that maybe 70% of my money is coming from makeup. But makeup is such a small item that it doesn't capture a lot of the warehouse, so you can never tell my strength.
Yeah.
And I liked it this way. I kept keeping merchandise that was barely profitable, taking a lot of space, and people, why? Well, yeah, I don't want to go there, but trust me, it's important.
Yeah.
And by the time competitors understood that, I already dominated. It was a lot easier. But that was the reason I entered into subscription box, because there was a subscription company called GlassyBox, and in 2012 they bought for me some products. They bought not for me. I had one of my sales reps sold them some nail polish, and that sale, I had a staff meeting every Friday about all the sales. It was with all my sales meeting, and we're trying to break some records and having some goals and so on. He went and he told me, well, we sold this Revlon nail polish to GlassyBox Canada. Now, if you actually Google Revlon nail polish GlassyBox Canada, if it's still on the search results, they had nothing but the biggest catastrophe, because we sold them a US-made product, and we were very clear on the website, on the invoice, and when we explained to people, everything has discount stickers on them. So when they looked at the discount, when we shipped it, whoever bought it didn't pay attention to that, and they just placed it in their subscription boxes. So their members were getting the box where it says 50% off or something like that, because it wasn't. They needed to be in the warehouse. They, I guess, forgot or something. So that caused them a lot of problems. And later on, someone contacted Revlon in Canada, and they said, oh, we never sold them directly. And their salesperson said, their customer service was responding, oh, we're buying directly, it's not liquidation. They said, no, it is, it's not ours. In fact, it's very old. It wasn't a Canadian SKU, it was a US SKU, so the Canadian SKU had a completely different, it was 10 years ago, it's a 10-year-old product. It wasn't, but in Canada, that SKU was from 10 years ago, so they thought it was the worst, but they had a major issue because of that. But that's what got me into this.
Okay.
And that's how I got into the business of subscription box.
Nice. In 2014, 15, that was like the height of the subscription boxes, right? That was like Birchbox and everything.
Yeah.
How did you differentiate? Because you also, I mean, you had Macy's and Sephora, these massive, monolithic brands that were that failed.
I thought, they all got in. Sephora failed on this. I mean, they shut it down. I don't like saying they failed. They tried, but Macy's, Sephora, they all came in plus hundreds. I couldn't. At first, I was trying to keep up with who else is, but then you just stop. Yeah. Look, in a subscription box, there are a couple things, right? My claim to claim was that I was able to come in with a box that's all full size for at first $21, right?
Not sample sizes,
Not sample size. Now, why was it impactful? Well, how is it different, right? I saw it as like the Cold War, right? It's economical war. And you need to put them in an impossible war. It doesn't matter who they are. All my competitors, like Birchbox and so on, they raised a lot of money. I did not. I was bootstrapping everything, but I had resources. By then, I had business, I had warehouse space and all that. What I did, I said, all right, if I take a $21 box and I put $10 into products, that would be my budget. Can I still keep profit? And I learned that I can still be profitable if I do a couple steps. But if I do $10, my biggest competitors were not Glassy Box that were $21. It was actually Birchbox and Ipsy. So if I'm already paying for products, what you're charging for the entire box, you're not going to beat me. So I came up with that process. And how can you afford it? And you learn that actually you can go and get 5 full-size items with a retail that would be over $100 every month for only $10, because the profit on the subscription in makeup or skincare or so on, it's just very high. Usually it's 8 cents on the dollar.
The markup is
the markup is high. But then what you have to focus on is the logistic. You have to make sure that I learned that no one was paying attention to the logistic and the fulfillment. If I have a box within a box like Birchbox and then you ship it out, like the whole process of fulfillment is very expensive. In our case, we had a collapsible box that looks nice, but that's it. It cost us 20 cents. And I needed to be under a particular weight because the difference was paying $7 in shipping versus $2.50.
You under like a pound, right?
Under a pound, exactly. Okay. So if you're under a pound at the time, your cost is, and that allows you to have that budget. If you don't do it, if you just go a little bit above, if you allow the fulfillment to be too expensive because you put a crinkle paper and then you add another thing, all those added up. So we made it very, very efficient, but looks nice. So when people buy this, they really thought we're gonna be out of business like this because they thought we're burning through cash, but we were not. We're profitable.
And you also had to eliminate like hair products, which were heavy, right?
Yes, I mean that was a deeper into the evolution of how do you perfect yourself. Sure. So we got that part early on, what I just mentioned, but we still ran into some challenges because the products were not there. And sometimes you had this great box that everybody wanted, and sometimes it's not. And you're trying to say, okay, what is the commonality? And so one day we sat down and we wrote down, okay, this was good, this was good, this was good. Let's put the pictures of all the boxes. And you say, okay, anything that had an eyeshadow palette, 1. Anything that didn't, okay, now what makes us not being able to put an eyeshadow palette is the weight or the price. Why? Well, we learned that if you put skincare and hair care in the same box, it's never going to be a winning box. Something about hair care did not sell enough. It wasn't appreciated. So with the weight category that I'm in, I cannot afford throwing. So we ended up modifying that in 2016, and then we just decided palettes every month, face palettes, eye palettes, whatever these palettes, throw it in, and then we learn other categories that would sell the box, like brush sets and so on. So as soon as we did this, we started booming. There were more, I mean, we can break it down later on in marketing strategies after that, but it was a very instrumental piece that we had in April 2016. And it happened to us because we had 1 month that we lost more members than we gained. And we have not have that month, maybe we wouldn't have that meeting, and maybe the brand wouldn't be where it was. But you need that little slap on the wrist to say, there's a reason, go listen to the consumer again, perfect your product. And one thing I did take, again, going back to the liquidation, is when my box, when I knew that box is just so-so, because I could not obtain early on a good box in that month, I didn't push marketing. I figure you double down when it's worth the marketing. The marketing is only as good if the platform underneath it is solid. Otherwise, it's going to crack through on social media and people are going to butcher you. You need to make sure you do. And then eventually we had consistently good boxes for years. But in the beginning, you don't have a lot of brands that knows you and so on. You have to knock on a lot of doors. So, if you have a great box, put everything you have in it and run with this. It's better off at first doing that versus doubling down on something that's not worth it.
How did you convince the initial brands? Because I'm sure they weren't eager in the beginning to partner with you.
It's an evolution.
You were paying their manufacturing costs, or like what were some kind of ways to?
Our cost, the product was paid in full. That was the business model. It was like, look, we're not asking you to produce a sample size because we understand it's a whole product development for you, and you don't need to do another one.
Yeah.
So give us your full size, and we're going to pay you the manufacturing cost. It would cost you absolutely nothing.
Gotcha.
We're going to put it in the hands of highly engaged consumers, and we're going to create a buzz. We're also going to send this to many influencers and so on. So that was the business. The big brands were the challenge because big brands, when you talk to a small brand, the owner is there, he's the decision maker, and he said, I like it, let's go. When it's a big brand, it's someone that has a desk job, they're already bombarded with work, and now it's another work for them. There is no division that only doing events, for instance. That's all they do. We have another event. Okay, let's add you into our calendar. It's a beauty event, whatever. No, they do events, they do marketing, whatever they do. Now they have to do another thing. They don't want that. But eventually, as you build more and more popularity and you chase the cool factor, they decide, okay, we need to work with them. If by the end of the day, have to perform and do this. Now, there were still challenges with big brands because they had to later on explain this to someone above them, either the founders or some other execs and so on, and they had to go and pierce that barrier and get them through. But ultimately, everyone hears about you, so everyone wants to work with you. And when you get the influencers were a big key. Ultimately, they understand that, well, we're going to get a free campaign with influencers. That's what got them in. Or we are stuck with some inventory. Oh, BoxyCharm will take this, put this in their box. You wash off those products. They'll pay you what it cost you. And then when you do it and they see, wow, that campaign was amazing. What happened? We're booming this month. We sold everything in Sephora, all that. Well, that's because 400,000 people got your product in 1 month. And hundreds of influencers were mentioning you in social media. Okay, can we do more campaigns with them? Yeah, but now you have to go and produce products because we don't have 200, 300,000, a couple 100,000 pieces sitting on hand. So, and that's it. So every brand that was a big brand, I would remember the reason why they came in. And everyone had a different reason at the end of the day. But ultimately, when you deliver results and they see that it was a win for them, they would come in. Now, sometimes it was just an employee that worked for one brand, bounced to another brand and told them, guys, we got to do this. So just build an amazing product and focus on an amazing product, life would be so much easier down the road.
So influencers were the main factor for marketing. Did you do paid advertising at all? Or
we only started playing with paid,
Later
truly. I'm not talking like SEO position, to protect your name on it. I'm talking real money was when we did about 200 and something million in sales.
Okay.
And all that came just from influencers. To get to about 400 or 500 million, we had to go and start throwing some money in paid, and it was relatively very low considered the size of our company. It was low because it's something that you have to kind of like scale through. You have to learn that. You have to be good at that. So
it was almost like a trifecta. So you had the makeup brand, marketing brand, and a logistics side. So
exactly.
These kind of this amalgam all together. So when you have all that product coming on, how are you managing that? Because you had like, I don't know, 3 or 4, how many products per box? It was like...
So 5 products per box generally. I mean, there's some differences here and there, but 5 products per box. And at first, I think until we were about 300,000 members, it was 1 box for everyone.
So you're managing all of that. So you have all these different products coming in at different times. So you almost have to like prepare the boxes 9 months.
Well, you buy the products about that time, like about 9 months in advance. And that's one of the barriers to enter this business. When you start that business, you have, say, 5,000 subscribers, you can go to brands and they have on the shelf right now products to give you. But once you get to a certain size, 10, 20,000 members, now you have some issues because no one have those quantities, and eventually you have to go and ask them to produce it, and that take about 8 months or so. So you buy for 8 months from today. So you go from I'm buying for next month to I have to buy for next month, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, 4 months from now. You have to go and do all that all at once, and it hits you, and you didn't know when you go in. They don't teach you that in business school,
Different tiers.
So it's like, so there's that one moment where you say, okay, to grow, I got to take a leap of faith on that business and put everything I have with all my money and let me buy many months out. And then eventually you get 8 months out, and what do? You buy either too much or not enough, right? So that was another challenge. But that is, I would say, one of the first obstacle to scale a company like that. You cannot predict every model that someone would show you. You can understand, for me, and I'm a little bit radical in this, it's like, every time you show me a model that you think this is how it's going to look like, it was nothing less than laughable. You can put down the person who wrote down the model, and you can shoot holes into it, because the data that they have is not the data that is sufficient to make any decision on. You just got to go and think, well, that's what I'm going to do. And I feel, in our case, there was no formula to that. We just had to figure it out. And eventually, once we had more than 300,000 members, we got to a point that we have critical mass to buy enough products in volume and price, to go and break it down into quantities that are less, and then do variations of boxes. This way, not one product goes to all boxes, because that is the risky part. You have to buy it in chunks. And that, that was something I knew I'm going to have to get to, and that was actually a helpful part. So technically, as you grow, it gets easier, if it makes sense. It gets easier. There's that part that you have to jump on it. It gets hard, but then it gets a lot easier. And from there, the big ones, the rich get richer, if it makes sense.
Once you master that next tier.
Yes, because when you have a lot of boxes already, when you have enough members, you do not have to worry about the quantities as much, because you can just go and say, all right, look, how many members I have right now that are into this particular product. Okay, let's give half of them in 8 months from now that amount. So now you buy, 100,000 here, 100,000 there, 300,000 here. Per unit, instead of buying for the full million subscribers that you have, one, and hope that you will have 1 million in 8 months from now, because right now you're at 650. You don't know where you're going to be. Now you don't do that anymore. So you just buy, and everything gets easier in that point.
And what's your hiring process like? Because you're a staunch proponent of Price's Law, which says, the square root of the people at your company do 50% of the work.
Yeah.
So when you're hiring people, what does that look like? Because I feel like when you look at places like SpaceX that are converging on one big mission, I feel like that was the same at BoxyCharm.
So I would say that in my case, we were trying to perfect hiring, but I don't give it too much weight in the hiring, because I wasn't the one doing all the hiring. Obviously, I did very few hiring at the time when I grew the company. Right? Later on, other people have to hire. What I think the problem is the firing. Most companies don't have a strict process of when do you let someone go, because you keep the wrong person. Not only it's bad for the business because he's bad or it doesn't work, or you missed the opportunity to hire someone else, right? So you kind of know early on if it was the right person, and you can perfect the hiring process. And we can talk about this in length, but I feel like before you go there, it's an evolution that everyone has to go through, but you need to know that you got to fire the wrong people faster than your competition. Otherwise, eventually you're going to lose. If you fire them better, it doesn't matter how good they are in hiring. Ultimately, because they retain the wrong people, it's kind of like an inflammatory factors that stays in their body. Eventually, you're going to win. That's my belief. And by the end of the day, if you hire if you keep A's would always gravitate towards A's, B's hire C's, right? So if you take, and it's more noticeable in directors and above, where you see that an A hires A, B's hire C's, because and B and an A is a threat for the B. A B is still a threat for B, but a C is not. So it is a very dysfunctional department if you had yourself a director that was a B. You have to be very vigilant on keeping nothing but C's. And once you have great A's in your company, it's a lot easier, because they're the one that don't have the patience to keep the wrong people. They would just do the job good. And you sometimes have to go and remind them, look, don't go back and tell me that person failed. Eventually, it's going to be your fault. So you have to do what you have to do. But the hiring, the firing, it has to be something that is instilled within the culture, because it's supposed to be a team, not a family. A company that think you're a family, then that is a misleading it's a misleading line that a lot of founders say. No, in my case, I would say it more like the Chicago Bulls. You want to make sure that you have the right players. No one wants the wrong player. No one. You want to have the right player, and so then we can keep taking championships. And that's a mindset you have to see, because you are going to fire people, and it's not even fair to say it's family.
So in 2016, when you brought on more partners, did they advocate for hiring a CEO or different parts of your team or adding to it?
No, with them, they were really supporting with everything they can to support.
Okay.
Instead of control.
Yeah.
The company itself, Carp Riley, great people, were still really good friends. They came in from a place like, look, we've never invested in a subscription box. We're good with restaurants, and we're here to help you when you need something. And they did. And I feel like the biggest contribution was helping me think big.
Okay.
Yeah, I can go and point many others, right? They would sit down with me many times and tell me, all right, we're going to try to hire this position, C-level, and this is probably what we want to do. Let's look for a headhunter and so on, and they would help me interview. But ultimately, the biggest play was, for me, to transform your brain to a brain of an enterprise CEO versus a small mom-and-pop business, was little things that throughout the day you sit down with people who have seen companies growing to billions of dollars from nothing. And I remember one of the lines, one of them told me, Alan Karp, he was telling me, at the time I was grossing $30-40 million, and he said, look, a $50 million business is not a $500 million business. It's a line that I just can't forget. We were just talking about a month ago, and he reminded me that I said, look, I remember when you told me that. I'm like, okay, geez, like, thanks. Why do I need to know then? What does it take to be 500? He's like, you'll see.
You'll find out, yeah.
Yeah, but what? Give me an example. You'll see. Like, he didn't even try to tell me why it's different, which at first you said, well, how am I supposed to use this information?
Yeah.
But ultimately you understand that if you climb a mountain, the view from a mountain cannot be explained to the person that climbed the hill.
Yeah.
On a hill, it is not the same. So just when you get there, you will get there, and any words cannot define a picture. So the perspective and to comprehend something, you just got to go through something.
Yeah.
So that's part of it, and you really have to understand that the bigger business is not the same, and you need to have people who have seen this just in your arsenal, because you will need that in you, and you don't think it's over the top. And
what was the mindset shift that you had to learn from 50 to 500 that you figured out?
It was so many little things. It's probably the idea that when you build something big, you're a lot more reserved on some decisions that you make.
Okay.
When you build something small, when your company is still small, when you grow out from when you kind of like bounce around into a big company, your decisions are much less every day.
Okay.
Instead of doing a million things, you do 1 or 2 things a day. That's it. In my case, right? Which means you cannot deal with little things, right? The little things is what stops you from the big things. The little things really stops you from the big things. So, and we're not when we hear that and we say, but it does make all the difference. Where I was a lot busier when I was doing about 50 million in sales versus 500. My day was mostly clear. I knew exactly what I have to do every day. There's 1 or 2 things. Everything else is minuscule. And I was chasing those particular moments to create certain momentums. But that would be my biggest thing in terms of what you do throughout the day. When you talk about a mindset, you ask yourself, what differentiates someone that wants something versus someone that have a mindset for something?
Yeah.
And I feel like someone who wants something, they don't actually act on it in every bone of their body. When your mindset is to say, I am not interested in going, let's just say I'm interested right now in in having 1 million members. I have right now 300,000 members. So if I want to have more members, I have 2 or 3 things that I know I need, and I would put everything I have only in those 2 or 3 things. When you say, well, I want to be there, let me manage this operation. I want it, but I'm not embracing it. Then you will go into, and that would be the typical mistake of many corporations, where they're going to have okay, let's go in a regular meeting. We'll talk about this later. We'll define this later because I have another corporate meeting, and then another one. Actually, let's push it for next week. Let's discuss this next week. It's like, okay, if you really thought it was important, how is that regular corporate meeting that you have every day for hours is more important than the big picture? So you don't tie yourself into what you don't have to tie yourself, and that allows you to really have the mindset of someone that pushed the company with them to a bigger picture.
And take us into the world of the super charmers. How did you build that kind of evangelists, these advocates that it was kind of organic, right? How you built that?
Yeah. That was the community itself. I remember that I heard my competitors always talking about their communities, and they were bigger than me at the time. And I noticed that community is not something that just a lot of people that know you and that's it, or they kind of like your product.
Yeah.
If you want to build a community as a group of people with the same space, in the same space, with the same interest, activating together. So you got to make sure that you understand what the space is, which is kind of hard when you mean a space where, well, I remember that the biggest thing for us was when we found out the Facebook groups in 2017. I found that bunch of groups, and I only found 3 groups on Facebook at the time, and they called each other charmers, and they were just talking makeup. It was Boxy Bodies, Boxy Beauties, and so on, Boxy Babes. So I joined them just to see the sentiment. And I noticed, first of all, they didn't want me in because they said, well, you're a dude, and they didn't know who I was. My accounts were private.
Like, I'm the founder.
When they noticed I'm the founder, like, oh, thank you for coming, and they were really happy, and everyone knew who I was. And I noticed that they are the most passionate people. And I said to myself, you know what? A community is not about the size, it's about the passion. Let's make them super passionate, because everyone else that's going to go into those groups is going to be just as passionate, because they're going to see the passion over there. And that's what happened. I noticed that they're very passionate, and I told them, I'm going to tell you the next product that's going to be in the box before everyone else. And that created the biggest buzz. I was able to communicate. I was joining this community. Anyone that created a group for BoxyCharm or fan pages on Instagram, I would engage with them. So people felt that it was a great moment for them to connect with like-minded people, and the commonality was BoxyCharm. And that was the first, I would say, the first aha moment that I had, where, okay, those ladies are extremely passionate. Every time when there's any challenge, they're the one, if they would explain the reasons of the company, it comes off a lot more organic and so on. And we just kept doing so. Now, that was phase 1, to understand what a community is. The second part was bringing more people in and kind of like letting people know, hey, listen, I'm glad you guys following our Instagram page, but if you really want to know what's going to be in a box before anybody, join those forums. So I kind of like moved within one day tens of thousands and later on hundreds of thousands of followers from our IG account into those pages, and they blew up.
Wow.
From one day to another, they blew up. They said, we need more charmers. They called each other charmers. For me, it wasn't obvious. They said, we need more charmers. We need 3 more moderators, And it was amazing. So then every time I needed something to go viral, I mean, imagine at one point we had close to 100 forums that I was involved in, dozens and dozens of fan pages. And when I wanted something to go viral, all I had to do is go on one of the forums and say, hey guys, this is going to be next month in a box. But then I kind of said, all right, what else am I missing? What else am I missing? I have this tool. I have hundreds of thousands of ladies on different forums. And they all, when I put a message, all of them get it. The algo on the forums is different than just a post on IG. So what I did was I would go and tell them, tomorrow at 3 p.m., I'll let you know I'll give you a sneak peek. That was the most wanted information by the community. They all want to know what's going to be next month in the box. So on one hand, you have to make sure the products are going to surprise those ladies, because they've already almost seen everything, but you have to keep rolling something they haven't seen. And then when you have something amazing, it's like, okay, guys, tomorrow at 3 p.m. The searches for BoxyCharm sneak peek the day after at 3 p.m. Eastern time was off the chart. And I would look at Google Trend, and you would see that major spike, because you don't want to have 300,000 people searching at your name over 30 days. You want them over the next 10 minutes.
Wow.
Then all the platforms would understand that BoxyCharm is trending because of that. That would trigger the algorithm. You just take everything you have to kind of like pierce through that wall and tell the algo, hey, we're here. And anyone that would mention anything about BoxyCharm would go viral at that point because the algo just prioritize anything content beauty related. Beauty lovers should see something about BoxyCharm. So people continuously talked about BoxyCharm because they got more views. Now we would do this 3 times a month, and we've done this from 2017 until the end of 2020 when I exited the company. Never stopped.
Jeez.
And it always worked. And that's how we became cool, and influencers by default wanted to work with us just because we're cool. So then influencers also want to stay relevant, so they'll charge you much less just so you can work with them because you're the cool one and so on. And it becomes a magic cycle at the end.
So part of the tactic was almost like you wouldn't tell them which platform it was on.
I wouldn't tell them,
like they would search on
I
Google.
need them to search,
and then they're like trying to figure it out on their own. Okay.
The search, and later on the discussion itself around the product. And then we did more because I would always kind of sneak peek in hiding. I would go and do stories with my phone, and I would always, once a while, I would throw in a kind of like from the corner, you'll be able to see a little bit. And those discussions became viral every time on Reddit
like,
groups.
What's in his bookcase?
Is it this? Is it that? And then a few months later they'll see this. So there was always this scavenge hunt game that I would do, and they would find it later on. So there was every story you post, everything you do, there's like hundreds of thousands of eyes on it, wanting to know what's in it, and that was so instrumental, because to be cool, you got to be discussed. I mean, how do you get to be cool? That was an advice I got in 2015. They said, you got to chase the cool factor. There was a lady that gave me that advice, and I told her years later, I said, it's thanks to your advice. She said, you got to chase the cool factor, and she gave me the example of Beats by Dre. She said, we promoted Beats when nobody knew what it was, and we said, this is how we're going to do this. We're going to give this to all the coolest DJs, all the cool, on beach video, parties, every music, they were all going to see it, and before you know it, Beats by Dre was cool, so you need to be cool. And that's what she gave me, and I went with this, slept on it, and for years, all I cared about is stay relevant, cool.
What were some other marketing tactics that you used to kind of construct this virality?
I'll give you one off. I don't think a lot of them would be relevant now. You just got to have creative brain for it. But if take one, when TikTok blew up, around 2020, I called one of my friends that she's a singer, and I told her, look, how about you do any song and mention BoxyCharm in a song. I already work with mega influencers on TikTok, and I'll have them all post whatever they do about BoxyCharm. 30 minutes, within the first 30 minutes of you dropping the song on TikTok, they're all going to use your soundtrack.
That's huge.
I just need BoxyCharm on it. And, one has 10 million, 20 million, 3 million. Take all of them, make sure they all use that soundtrack.
Yeah.
And the name Boxy needs to be in it. She came up with that song within 2 weeks.
Jeez.
And that song went viral.
That's insane. Wow.
J-Lo used that song on her Instagram. It's just randomly. So that was one, because the strategy has not changed. I was doing search engine marketing, search engine optimization and internet marketing back in the day. I'm talking from 2003. And one thing you do learn is that in order for that to be a buzz, you want all that conversation to be condensed. So you want all those searches to be condensed. You want all those mega influencers to use it at the same moment, because the algo has to see a shift and a change. That doesn't have to be too complicated, and that was helping very much. The other part was editing. I figured out that was in 2014, right? Today, everyone understands the value of editing and stimulating your audience and so on. But in 2014, I noticed an influencer named Kathleen Light. She had 100,000 followers, and she was very charismatic. But something about her, she was growing about 3,000 followers a day. And unlike other ladies that were just as nice and beautiful, they're all beautiful, but why is it that she gets to have every day 3,000 new followers? I told her, you're going to have 1 million in a year, and she ended up having 2 million in a year. So, and for me, when I looked at her videos, everything looked clear. I understood what editing was all about at the time, because unlike all the other videos, she didn't do any gimmicks or so on with editing. All she did was cutting herself every about 2 seconds, maybe 2.5 seconds. There was some cut and
Attention
edit,
span,
right?
yeah.
So you kind of see the eyes, like you see her. First of all, it takes out all the all those. It looks like a beautiful coherent sentence, but the second part is there's a little stimulation part where you see the face moving just a little bit because of those editing, just a little bit to keep you stimulated. Now today you need a lot more than that, because younger people they need a lot more stimulation than that, and we can talk about those. But at the time, that's all it takes for people to see the video throughout the entirety or big piece of the video versus moving on, scrolling on fast. She had the hook, and then she had the ability to retain them because of those simple editing, but that's all it took. And those were kind of like cornerstones for us for creating content. We used this later on and all the way to 2020 when we got out.
It was almost easier too in the beginning, right? Because the influencers would just like post about it organically. Like now, if you did this, you have to go through their agents, managers, whatnot. Then it was like it felt like, hey, this is a new product I'm using, whatever, and you kind of capitalized on that, right?
Yeah. So agents came really early, I got to say. I mean, even in 2015, 2014, I remember a lot of them, and I remember that nobody likes agents, you know. And I have a lot of friends that are agents, so it's not personal, but you obviously want to talk directly to the talent, and there's that part. So what do? How do you solve that problem, right? If you're my cousin and you have 1 million followers and an agent, I'm not talking to your agent. I beat him up right now. Are you talking to you? Are you going to do it for me because you're my cousin? You're going to do it for me because I'm your cousin, right? Now, I don't have cousins that are influencers, and I can't be everyone's cousin, but I can be their friend, or I can just get to know them, and how about we just grab dinner, and I'm not selling you anything. And that's what we did for years. Coming to LA every time, we grab dinners. Like, listen. And that was nothing less than genuine friendship. Like if you're cool, like if you're not cool, I don't care about it. Plenty of influencers, right? Yeah. But if people are cool and stuff like that, let's do it. And then if we want to talk business, awesome, let's do it. So I decided that I'm going to entrench myself into the influencer community because genuinely I feel like we get to learn a lot from each other, just talking algos and what should we do, what's going to go viral and everything else. And you want to work, we can work together and stuff like that. I'll talk to your agent, but we're still friends. So I'll do the money part with your agent if that's what it takes. But with you, listen, can you do this on 2 p.m. exactly? I'll call you, I'll ask you directly. The value of talking to people directly, it makes everything. But then what happened after? Now we're friends. Now I'm friends with the husbands of the influencers or with the influencers themselves, and we're generally friends. So now they want to open their own business. They call me up, I help them. Or they called me up, they said, look, there's a new girl, she's blowing up. You want me to connect you with her? She's amazing. Yes. Most people don't have that access, right? So, and then ultimately, again, you want to give them something that would make sense more than just money. You want to make sure that you're giving them an amazing box that they can stand behind. If your product really are worth it, they can say, look, yeah, they're paying me. But tell me it's not worth it. Look what they have over here, right? And that makes a big difference. You have to think, why would it be a win-win situation? We had 4 pillars in BoxyCharm. We had 1 goal and 4 pillars, 4 main strategies to grow. The goal was to grow. More members, not trying to turn more profit. As long as I don't lose money, I want to have more members. That was our goal. And how to reach that goal, you had the 4 pillars. Number 1 is best, we used to say content is king. Get the best product in the box. 2 is best customer experience. We can break it down later. The 3rd was best brands experience. Give them the best-in-class marketing campaign for free. And the last, but definitely not least, is influencers experience. They got to be passionate about the box. Everything that's related to influencers experience is a way to grow. So you do trips together. You get to build real friendship through those trips, events, parties. Then eventually they start inviting you to baby showers and so on. Now you're friends. That's it. Now that's part of my friends. And as you know, today I actually came back. Last night I was in a wedding. It was like, and that's years after I sold the business because it was genuine. They were really awesome people and we're friends. Yeah. So years later, you're still in that industry because when you build friendship, that's part of what it is. Yeah. And it was amazing. It was amazing. So just people need to remember, by the end of the day, we're all people. It's not all zeros and ones. Right? Get an amazing product or a service, and then if you want to really have good interaction with influencers, be with them and just don't make it weird, just go in and just have friendships with few, and then you're going to get to know their friends, and from there it spread.
Was it the same process with like Kylie Jenner, or is it?
No, that was a little bit different.
Yeah.
I mean, with Kylie and the Kardashians, Jenners, I remember I wanted to meet with them because they also had makeup products and skincare products, and I wanted to get them in a box. So I met with Chris a few times, and I gotta say, nothing but the nicest people.
Yeah, they're great.
They're really, really nice people, and I ask myself, how can I get the same when my children grow? How can I do what Chris did to have her kids passionate about building things and creative, waking up with a purpose, right? This is beautiful. So I went over to her house. We spent some time. We were talking about what we want to do something in terms of marketing, and then we spoke a little bit more about other stuff. We had a nice conversation over there. And that's really how we kicked off. It was mostly a business relationship, but I would say that there was definitely a personal connection over there that helped build not just it was business, but it was business around buddies, something like that. Yeah. It was beautiful.
Did that spark her initial interest in Kylie Cosmetics, or did she already have that going on?
Well, we had her product in our box, but Kylie Cosmetics, I don't know if you remember her evolution. She started Kylie Lips, then she changed it to Kylie Cosmetics, right? Okay. So that was already, when we started working together, it was already there. The thing is with a subscription box, unlike a makeup brand, when you have a makeup brand, you have a launch once a while of some products and you send all your products to people. When you have a box, every month, you have a different box.
Yeah.
So if you want to work with me, and you're an influencer and you charge, say, $1, and $1 might be stiff for a box, I'll tell you, look, I'm not gonna pay you $1, but I will pay you 10 cents. But over a year, you're gonna make $1.20 because I got it for you every month. And I'm freaking cool, man. You're gonna put this in. It's a surprise. People like it. You know what? Let's do it. Why not? Okay, let's do it. And it doesn't compete with other makeup brands. It doesn't compete with anything else. All makeup brands love it. And by the way, from there, if it works for me, other makeup brands would want to work with you directly. So it's really is a win-win situation for everybody. And you can be creative with what you can do in life.
Was that one of the most stressful things? Was like finding something new every single month that they would actually love?
Stressful.
Stressful
is when you have a strike at the LA port and they just don't unload your container with all the good stuff, and it's like it's out of your, or you shipped something and now there's a blizzard on the Northeast and no one over there can get their box, but even though mail is not delivered, they call you and like, what the hell? Go back to your country. Where's my box? There's snow. What am I supposed to do? I get out of my hand. Those are more stressful, I would say.
Yeah, that seems more stressful, yeah.
Yeah, I remember we had a hurricane come in Florida, and there was a funny meme that one of we posted on Instagram. It was a hurricane, and it says, be right back, as a joke. And there was, one of the customer service representative told us, hey, you got to see this email. I know what that email was. Oh, I don't care if you all die from the hurricane. You better give me my box and so on. And she was from Sarasota. Now, we're on the east coast of Florida, right? The hurricane ended up turning around and going straight to Sarasota. I was like, boom.
That's karma.
Like, why did you say that?
No. That's funny. Can you take us through the exit with the company? Because it was one of the first in the subscription space, right? And
I think it was the only one, at least meaningful. Because there were some other ones, but it was more like, let me salvage something out of it. But this is the only good. So, we sold for $500 million, and it was, let me tell you something.
This was at the end of the pandemic or beginning?
No, it was, we signed the papers on November 3rd, 2020.
Okay.
But when I tell you that was not coming in, when I tell you we spit blood for that exit, so check this out. We were not supposed to sell this to Ipsy. We were supposed to sell this to a big private equity. And
they weren't in the first bids, right? Ipsy was never in.
Ipsy came 2 weeks before the final. So what happened was March 25th, 2020 was supposed to be the day where you sign the papers and you're done with that particular private equity. And that was supposed to be $400 million. And I don't know if you heard about the virus.
No.
With my luck, it came to us, and I kind of knew from November, I'm like, guys, we're going to have a problem. Let's try to kind of like do it in February. Like, tell them not to take so long, because you get the first bids and you tell them, okay, March and something. They're like, guys, do it in February. I'm telling you. Like, what are you talking about, virus? You crazy? It's fine. Like, no, I'm telling you this in China, because we're trying to get product from China, and we started noticing those issues in October, November of 2019. And I said, guys, listen, let's tell them we have to do it on February. I was like, if you're going to tell them on February, you're going to look desperate, Give them what you want. I'm like, you're such a doomsday, I was like, okay, fine. March 15, 16, they shut down the country. We get a call from them. We're not doing any more investments until the end of the year. We'll see what happens. Now, Ipsy came 2 weeks before that. And listen, we didn't have any other buyers. And everyone is canceling because everybody is worried about buying toilet paper. So not only you didn't sell, you get a mass migration.
Oh, no.
And now you're already buying, like I said, a year out, right?
Yeah.
You're buying for bigger projections. What are you going to do? So I said, okay, one thing at a time. We have like 900,000 members, I think, at the time, or maybe 1 million, I remember exactly. I said, based on what I see over here, we're going to be with 600,000 at the end of the year. So start buying as if we have 600,000. Because I don't care now, we're changing our company goal from grow to profit. Change that. That's it. And we'll figure out from there. So we had to call all the companies, don't make, I don't know, X unit, make half X. Yeah. So that's one. We couldn't sell. Ipsy wanted to come and buy for 300 at first. And we said, no, we're worth more. We'll get back to you. Now, to be honest with you, I was willing to go for 300. You kidding me? My mom was helping. She was taking care. My mom was she was a living au pair in the United States. That's how we live. Like, this is where I came from. So it's like,
no more
give me that.
Yeah.
But my partner said, rightly so, they said they start with 300, they can end with 2. Just say no and let them come back. If they're serious, they'll come back.
Wow.
We had to wait for a month. Now, for the first 2 weeks of the pandemic, people were canceling and it was scary. But then at the end of March, we started noticing a shift that cancellations dropped. People understand that, there's toilet paper in the supermarket. World is not going to fall apart. You can't get out of the house. They started subscribing a little bit more. Then the stimulus check came. When I tell you money fall off the sky, and I remember waking up one day, usually we were getting like 2,000 subscribers a day or so, maybe 3,000, really good day, 5,000. I wake up and I see, early on, I just woke up and I already see 3,000 subscribers. Usually it's like 200, it's night. Nobody buys at night.
Yeah.
Well, what is this? And then the end of the day was 7,000. It was like a record. We didn't do anything special. What did we do? Was it something in the box? Did anyone mention us? Who could mention us that didn't mention us before that was so big? I mean, we had everybody. And then next day, 8,000, 10,000, 12,000. We broke record every day. We ran through all the inventory we had. We had to go and scale the purchases back again, call all those brands that we told them to lower the quantities, to increase the quantities. And that was a hell of a, but then Ipsy came back and they said, okay, we want to buy, what's going to be the price? We negotiated the price. We said, okay, let's do it. And you can understand, all that process started in 2018. I started doing this in 2018, thinking we're going to sell early in 2019. Then we had a hiccup. We had to fix it in operation. Then we got into the process at the end of 2019. Then that happened, the virus. Then finally we sold to Ipsy. So, wow, that was exhausting. It was exhausting. But at the end of all this, even the last night before we sold, there was a piece where we already announced to Bloomberg the acquisition. It was going to print. And then after that, there was another tackle where they said, we're going to change something, the representations and warranties points or something like that in the contract. They wanted something that we didn't agree. And I remember sitting with my team, debating with them, and with the Ipsy team until 2 a.m. And I'm like, guys, that's not going to work. Those guys are, no, just let's cancel the whole purchase. And they said, okay, let's cancel that. I already told my ex-wife, we sold the business.
Oh, shit.
I told her and she was excited. I was excited. But then that happened. I'm like, I'm not selling it if they want to add that clause in the contract. And I told my guys, this is not going to work. They're like, you know what? Okay, we're going to wrap it up with them. We're going to cancel. We're going to send termination letters. We'll talk tomorrow. I said, okay, we almost did this. Yeah. And I spoke with one of the guys like, look, I mean, it's good. At least we got to that point. I mean, how many people in the world?
Yeah.
Then I wake up. Obviously, I sleep like 2 hours. I wake up at 5 or something. And I'm noticing that he's awake with some emails that he's sending. So I called Will Mooney and I tell him, Will, he's from Carpile. I said, Will, are you up? He's like, yeah. I'm like, what's going on? So now I was already in a mindset of let's build this thing, let's go and let's take it public. That's what I thought. And he's like, no, it's fine. We're doing, he's talking to me about something that doesn't make sense said, what are you talking about? Oh, by the way, no, they agree to our terms. We are selling.
By the way.
Oh shit, we are selling. So I'm like, at that point, I wasn't sure if I'm happy or not, because I was already excited about my next move in a business, because I had already a plan in case we don't sell. And you kind of like sleep on it and like, that's gonna be good. But you kind of like, I'm excited to do it, but I'm excited I don't have to do it actually. So it was a minute, and then eventually I was like, I went back to sleep. I'm like, okay, now I turn off my phone. I'm like, okay, I'll go back to sleep.
Were you tempted at all to do like the SPACs, because that was in the middle of that height too?
No, because it was already so close. You're about to get that money right now. SPAC, you get billions.
But I mean,
billions,
in that waiting period where you were like, we're gonna.
I was asking them. I said, guys, should we look at this? Because listen, I gotta give it to Ipsy. Ipsy did an amazing job understanding the market, not the beauty industry, the market. And they said, listen, if we buy Boxy for 500 and they're doing 500 million, we're doing 550, 600 million, we're almost doing the same, but together like 1.1 billion in sales. What is that gonna SPAC for? And they went to Goldman Sachs, they went to everybody. And at the time, they're like $8 billion. And I remember that I sat down with Marcelo, and he was showing this to me. And he was telling me, look, this is where we're gonna be. At first, I thought he was smoking crack. I'm not gonna lie to you. And we were laughing. We were like, but then he goes and he said, you think I'm kidding? Because at first he told me over the phone. He said, look, this is from Jefferies. This is from JP Morgan Chase. This is from Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs is right there in the middle. Jefferies 9. Those are 7. Goldman Sachs is selling $8 billion valuation. So I'm basically buying it for 500 and I'm collecting 4 billion for it. Why don't you sell less equity and just let's go together and make it? And it's like, you think about it, right?
Yeah.
But then I went back to my core and I said, you know what? I'm selling 70% of the business. I'm not selling 100%. So if I'm selling 70%, I'm totally cool taking it now. Yeah. I'm not going to be sorry because I still have 30%. Yeah. And if none of this ever happens and the world fall apart, I got 70% out, so I'm not going to be sorry for losing those 30%. So that was my decision to go from that. But how can you argue when the smartest people in the world, I guess, in finance, tells you this is your worth? So it was exciting. We thought about this, but we said it is just right here. You're just picking it up, or for the maybe you're going to get so much more. Why would you go for the maybe?
Because you're tempted, because you could, with a SPAC, you could still take out some money and still have the upside. Is that why
they even did secondary in SPAC? This is the thing. So the story about going public is that you can touch your money for 6 months and then little by little bit and all that stuff, right? With SPAC, there was a secondary option when we spoke to them. It was really insane. I think that stopped. I know SPAC obviously went through, but I'm talking about the secondary. I understand that it's no longer like that. The same way. There are ways to do secondary, by the way, when you do it. I learned so much through that process. But there are ways that it gets done, just not in the way people think. So you can take some secondary.
Was another option like a dividend recap?
That was definitely what it was.
Out, right?
Exactly. So you nailed it. You do a dividend recap right before, and then when you go public, you pay back that debt. Okay. So you say, all right, look, we believe we're $1 billion. We're going to pull out, I don't know, $300 million, do dividend recap. We take in a loan. The bank gives you that money. You go public. You get that Wall Street cash. You paid back the debt the day after. But now it was on the business, not on you.
And the valuation was that it was different than like what a traditional SaaS company would be, right? Because it was one of the first.
I wish we were SaaS. Listen, I mean, the valuation would have
been crazy, right? Like,
listen, I mean, I sold about 500 million. I had a gross revenue of 500 million roughly, and we sold for 500. Right? If that was a SaaS, I would have bought LA right now, and you would have been doing my loan and all that. That would have been a different story. So
But because there was also like a subscription box after you that sold that was doing like 600.
Which one was it?
They had like 80 million in revenue, and it sold for like 600, something like that.
Whatever they did,
but
I want to learn about that because they did amazing. Yeah,
you were first. It was amazing. What was that feeling like as soon as you sold? Like, did you have to adjust to that? Because your lifestyle was a little...
Nothing, man. This is the disappointing part, because you feel it's going to be amazing, but you don't, because
you'd already been anticipating, like...
You're anticipating it for a long time, and you knew you're going to get $1. They gave you $1, so why am I excited if I knew for 2 years I'm working on this over here? No, I did feel it about 6 months into it, because I didn't feel it because I got it. That question was asked. Money came in. I was at the time banking with Goldman Sachs, and the lady in Goldman Sachs asked me, "How are you feeling when we saw the cash?" Right? Because usually that day, it always comes later. You keep refreshing, and finally you see those 9 digits. And she said, "How are you feeling?" I said, "No, I don't feel anything." And I had some explanations for a long time about this, but I feel like the wiring that you have for so many months, for years actually, going through this, it's not going to stop. You still feel something. So you don't feel, I'm done, I can go, thank you, bye. No, you don't feel that. And I had to stay there for a while to consult, but I really felt it about 4 months or 5 months into it, or maybe, around that time, around April or May, I think, of 2021. And I know why it hit me then. I don't know why it didn't hit me before, but I know why it hit me then. I sat down, I got divorced. And before that, and the problem that I had was I had to find for a place. So I finally found a house. I bought a house, and I remember that I have my days, couple of days of the week. My ex has the kids couple of days. So I had the kids, I dropped them off, I came back home. I sat down and I bought a nice place. It's like, I don't buy stuff, I don't care about watches, I don't care, but a house needs to look good. So I bought this beautiful place, and I said, I can do whatever I want for the rest of my life. And I don't have to worry about someone calling me from the office with a catastrophe, because and it hit me that now I really felt it. I sat down and it really came all over my body. Now I felt it.
Yeah.
And I said, I know I'm feeling it now. It's because for 20 years I was an entrepreneur. For 20 years I had companies. For 20 years I was running operations. For 20 years, when you get a phone call outside of work, it's no good.
Yeah.
Well, for 20 years now, you think it's exciting, but you don't understand there is the underlying stress. And suddenly I was at peace, and I understood what does it mean to be at peace, because I was not at peace before. And I had everything I wanted, and I was single again. It was like, and I have great relationship with my ex, and the kids are great. It's like, this is it. So everything came together. The money was one vehicle, but there was so much more, and it all came at once. And that was my aha moment. Like, okay, money was not what's going to make you happy. It's about the fact that you take away all that stress, you take away all those things, and that hit you all at once.
Yeah,
and that was the best
amazing.
part.
Yeah. What was the like transitioning leadership for you? Like when you kind of renounce control of this?
Yeah.
You look at like ancient empires when Augustus leaves.
I was so happy it was coming from Ipsy and not from Bain Capital, because if it was Bain,
in good hands.
the Bain Capital. I mentioned their name now. Here you go.
I'll bleep it out. It's fine.
No, it's fine. You can keep it. It was not. I don't remember signing anything, and there's probably. But Bain Capital was supposed to buy. But with Bain Capital, you have the moral and social. Obligation to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
And when I tell you that the whole industry fall off a cliff in 2021, right? And I knew it's gonna happen. I knew that it was fake money coming off the sky, and it's gonna stop.
Yeah.
So I knew what's going on, right? I knew that the beauty industry started slowing down since 2018, 2019. It was slowing down. It wasn't hard for me, but if they're buying me, no, they don't know how to do this business. You can't find a CEO, because that business, it's just me and Marcelo. We know how to run this business. That's it. Oh, FabFit Fund, the guys, that's it. But they're not going to do it for them. So it's on me. But because Ipsy bought this, listen, I mean, honestly, Ipsy has some fantastic people. I'm so glad we got to connect. They're just great. I had, it was a surreal moment, because we're kind of like knives on each other when we were big, both of us. When I was big enough for them to notice me, right? And then we grew, and it was a bloodbath. And I remember after the acquisition, I needed to fly to I think it was in Santa Monica. They have an office over there. And they told me, come talk to the marketing team over there, kind of like explain to them what you did so they can move on because they need to manage BoxyCharm now. And I said, sure. So I go there and you get to see some of them I think I met or maybe through online. And all of them used to follow my page because I was the face of Boxy. So they knew everything about me already. Mm-hmm. So I go there and we're sitting down and I remember there was it was a surreal moment for me because I'm telling myself in my mind when we started Ipsy was amazing. They were so popular with Michelle Phan and so many great influencers. It was amazing what they did. And I was always looking at them, inspired by them, and we're talking about Ipsy all the time. And then eventually things change and Boxy is the coolest brand and all that stuff. But then I'm telling myself, if I only told the people early on in BoxyCharm that used to work for us, guess what's going on now? It's like, look at this. So I sit down with the Ipsy people from the marketing team and all the VPs over there, and we're sitting on a table, and I remember I told them, guys, I'm sorry, it's just a little surreal for me over here. I feel like I'm in enemy territory over here, but it's my company still because I have a percentage in this business. So they're like, oh no. It's for us. Like you have no idea what. Yeah. It was the same thing. It was going both ways, and they tell us, "Oh, we can believe it."
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're good. So that was a surreal moment, and I feel like all of us had this hunger to see how the other one built it.
Yeah, for sure.
All of us kept talking. We're still talking. We're still friends. I mean, we're still going. We're seeing each other. It's just a really. There's no one else that can understand what we were going through on both companies. It was so beautiful.
That's awesome. Yeah. What are you investing in now? Like, what are you looking into?
Well, I started. I did a lot of things, and I remember it took me a while to find the next what.
Yeah.
So I have two companies that I'm building now, and one of them is in healthcare space.
Okay.
And the other one is actually so it's a trading algorithm.
Okay.
And I'll talk a little bit about the trading algorithm first, and I'll kind of like give you a briefing. So if you're probably familiar with bots that trade and so on. I started doing options trading a little after I sold, and I sat down with a friend of mine that taught me options. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what options are. I didn't know put, calls, nothing. I didn't know anything about the financial market, and I figured I gotta build some literacy before I build my next business, because then I'm not gonna have my mind to go and learn. So I sat down with him, and he literally showed me how to pretty much sit down every day and make money. And when I tell you every day I would sit down and print money, it was happening. But it was
You should teach me that. Yeah.
It was fascinating.
Yeah.
It's amazing, but it was not for me.
Okay.
Not for me. It's still very stressful. So I decided, but if I was putting all this in an algorithm, then it would obviously do it better than myself.
Yeah.
Right? Because you cannot comprehend and calculate as much as. So I spoke to my best friend that he works for Samsung. He's a VP of algorithm over there, and is doing it for 10 years. And he told me anything you do like that can be done to the 4th X. So I said, all right, look, I mean, honestly, like AI is the future, right? We all understand that, and we loosely use that term. I felt the future is that people are not going to be mom and dad trading like this. If I can do it in my head, imagine what a computer can do. I felt the future definitely is going to come in terms of trading with an AI. Yeah. Why not building it? So, once you start looking at the opportunity, you start finding that a bunch of people works for quantitative hedge funds, and that's all they do. And so you kind of like build a team of mathematicians and PhDs in physics and math to build a very, very sophisticated algo. And it's like a lot of algorithms optimizing themselves, but we built that, and now we're actually launching it. It's called Corvado. So we're I don't know if it's already been launched right now as we speak, because the first influencer is going to promote this. Now, by the way, I do have another partner that built his tool over here. Is also a good friend of mine, and it was just simultaneously every time we did something, we did the same thing without knowing. At the same time, he did options trading at the same time when I did, just like that. We just learned about that he was doing the same thing that I was doing, and then when I was building my bot, he was building his bot. I was like, I didn't know that. So then we decided to put everything together. You have his people, I have my people. We put them all together, and now we're pushing that. So that is one company. And the second company is in a healthcare space. I just had to do something at first. I knew I needed to do it because it was for my health. I need to build stuff. And it's like a video game for me. I need to do it. But when you find a what, you get excited. And I'm like, okay, BoxyCharm was nice and it was big, but I'll make it way bigger on my next one. And I'll add more than that. And I decided to build something around that framework.
Cool.
And so recently my partner and I just acquired a compounding pharmacy. My partner, Henry, is probably the number one immunology in the world.
That's your partner with them?
Yes. We bought a compounding pharmacy.
Okay.
It's a long story. So it's with a group. It's a telemed platform that he owns a big piece of it. The group, alongside me, we both combined a compounding pharmacy. And now we have a telemed platform. And now we're going to go and start selling products. But what we want to specialize in is at first anything that's FDA approved. So everyone knows Ozempic and Mounjaro.
Sure.
Right? So just for financial perspective, Ozempic is the number one selling medication. And next to it comes Mounjaro, and it's going to take over very soon because Mounjaro is a better. Now, the products underneath it, the molecules themselves, the name of the molecule, because those are the commercial names, is trizepatide for Mounjaro. So those particular products are not available all the time, and there's some issues. So we have a couple of things that are going to change. We would change a lot of things in the market because of that. And we're excited. My partner was teaching at the immunology lab in Harvard. And later on, he founded the immunology lab at MIT. And the first thing he told me is, I did this research in Harvard for transdermal creams. And all those peptides you're using, I noticed you use a needle. I can put them all on that cream, and it would go through. It's we tried 764 different creams in Harvard, and our research found that there's only one that's effective. So I was looking for an unfair advantage if I go into a business. I said, okay, so let's go and let's be partners. And that's how we got into it. And that was that's what we're building. So the actual company is going to launch around August, but for now it's still in the making. But it's been about a year plus in the making.
So dude, take us into your health journey, because that's an important aspect. You're investing in a health company, but your diet is like what we follow on Instagram. And you're doing, yogurts and honeys and peptides and all this kind of stuff. What is your daily regimen?
They tell you follow your passion and all that. And I'm the biggest critique for that advice, because you limit all your options based on your passion. But sometimes, I'm not saying don't go if you have a passion for something. Don't do that. Just don't limit yourself only for that. And I decided I want to lose some weight. I listened to a guy on Instagram talking about how, if you're 6 foot tall, they're 6 foot tall, it's only 10%, and if you want them to have this amount of money, it's 1%. I'm like, okay, I got that one. The money I got the height. And then he's like, do you want them to also have 6-pack? That's another 10% of the 10. Well, I don't have that. I'm like, I got to get my 6-pack. And I'm single now. So anyway, I was looking at that, and you go through a journey, and until you get those damn 6-pack, but you enjoyed it. But what happened, it comes in phases, right? There was my neighbor was talking to me. He's a very successful guy, and he said he was sitting down, and he had a podcast with me, and he was talking to me about how he used to go to a psychiatrist, and he had Adderall because he's ADD, like me, like anyone that has a big business. And he said, I cut all this off, my blood pressure medications and my Adderall, and now I'm only doing peptides.
Replacement, just completely. He still has the same energy, focus.
Exactly.
Wow.
And I told him, you do what? What are peptides? So he said, yeah, man, peptides. That was his answer to what are peptides. And I was like, no, but what peptides are? What is it? Yeah, man, doctors, they don't know anything about it. All right, whatever it means, I'm going to figure it out because it sounds important. I have ADD. My son has ADHD. So all right, let's figure it out. That's how it started. So I started learning about peptides. And once you start looking at it, it's like the story with the red car. You only notice if they tell you can make money from every red car you see. Suddenly you see red cars everywhere.
Every commercial. Yeah.
And that's what happened. I started hearing more and more about peptides, and I noticed, okay, no, that's the opportunity. This is the next what for me. And I started playing with peptides, and I figured I'm going to be trying a lot of different peptides to see what I like. And I started I was using Matzi early on, and if I cannot recommend enough Matzi. It's not FDA approved, but it's not illegal to use. It's like no one took it through the rigorous process of getting the FDA approved. And once you start taking certain peptides, and then when you read about the clinical studies behind this, with Matzi, I think the most. So what Matzi, for instance, would do is Matzi would technically regulate your mitochondria, one of your receptors in the mitochondria, to turn the glucose into energy. There's a couple pieces for that. And when I started taking this, not only I felt so energetic, I would feel, I started seeing not just the abs, like veins coming next to my abs. It was just, I've never had that before.
Yeah.
And then you start reading about the longevity aspect for that, where they did this experimental experiment with mice where they took different mice in different groups. But the point behind this is that the ones that lived at the last 6 months of their life, they know the mice life because they all live and die at the same time, unless you modify to some group something. So the ones that got the Matzi, not only they lived better because they're able to run on a treadmill longer and faster, and grip was stronger. They outlived by 6 weeks the other group. So they all had 6 months to live, and the Matzi lived longer. And there is more. They had a centurion group so Japan has the highest amount of people over 100 years old, centurions, and they found one commonality for all of them. They have a very high level of circulating Matzi, meaning naturally in their body. So technically, being metabolic is part of a longevity. So that's at least from what I read. Right, I don't want to go and speak like a health professional because I'm not. This is my reading. It works very well on me. And that was one. There are a couple others that I took, and I can tell you they were phenomenal.
What were the other ones? There's like
Well, if you take BPC 157, and you do it right, you inject it properly to the right spot. Like I had a bicep injury for years. Years. You can see that's much less developed than my right arm, my left arm, because of the injury. And right there from the first shot, I felt, what the hell? Am I not feeling the pain now? And obviously, I took a couple more shots, and it just went away after years. Now you go to a doctor, and I went to doctors, and they tell you to rest, and they tell you put some ice, but nothing. And now that's not FDA approved, but it's been used for so many decades, or it's like 2 decades of usage, and no real side effects from what I read. So I've been using this, and it was amazing. It's just say you do legs day, you walk like a duck a day or two later, right? You take that shot, and you have to inject it upstream, up the bloodstream, so into the place where it's painful. It's not pleasant. I'm not gonna lie to you, but it definitely is. So what we did was, my partner is an amazing guy. He was teaching at Harvard, and the transdermal cream that he had over there, he found. We mentioned that before. I'm just not sure if it was recorded.
I think so,
if it was okay, so I don't want to repeat something. But instead of you injecting to a painful place, you can just put a cream.
That's crazy.
And it's going to go through. That's what we're going to apply.
It's as effective as an injection?
Yeah, it's same. Yeah, it's the same thing.
That's insane. That's a game changer. Okay. Where do you get these? Where do you get the ones that are not FDA approved?
Right now, you just got to know somebody. It's not so simple because they have to compound. Everything must be compound. And a doctor that gives it take a certain risk because it's not an FDA approved, right? Because if there is no FDA approval, then you can sue him and say, why did you prescribe this? And I mean, they have malpractice for that, and they inform you about everything. But listen, this is something nice, and you can learn a little bit about the industry where you understand that there is a reason why things are so challenging to be FDA approved, but because of that, and which is not wrong, you are missing out on so much. And I think there's about 20 or so FDA-approved medications in the last so many years. So it's really not a lot, but you have discovery of new molecules that can be very instrumental for health and different benefits that they can't even consider looking at those as FDA-approved because the amount of cash you need is a lot.
So I'll text you after this to get the plug.
Yeah.
What other supplements, like, is it, I mean, anything like selenium, I love taking that. Other things that people might not know.
So I was going through a phase where I was trying a lot of, I was like 10 shots a day. And
different.
different. I don't do testosterone or anything like that, but I was doing a lot of peptides that are precursors, and they stimulate your body to create, right?
Sure.
Those are the amino acid chains. But eventually I start coming down with a lot of them, because ultimately I feel like there's some that you see an immediate results, but there are some that are kind of like vitamin C. You know, they tell you take vitamin C. You take it, like, you feel healthier? No. Do you ever get sick? Sometimes, but you take in, exactly. Okay, so I'm still getting sick. Like, I don't even
Could
know.
be like a placebo.
Yeah, so you don't know on all of them, but definitely there are some that that you see a quick result. And,
and another thing you said, which was kind of cool, which is like basically like the graph when you wake up. So the first thing to do, do not meditate, apparently.
No, yeah.
But like do something quick workout.
My suggestion, one way I lost weight, that wasn't about health. One of the way I lost weight was a little hack. And the hack was going from, wake up in the morning, you do your thing, at 1 p.m. you go to the gym and so on. When you look at the metabolic rate, you spike when you actually hit the gym. If you do anything, like you stress your body as soon as you wake up, your metabolic rate spikes hours before, say 5-6 hours before you go normally to the gym. So do push-ups until failure, do squats and jumps, do 30 of those. You're gonna definitely boost your metabolic rate. Just do that, 2-3 exercises like that. That's it. And as soon as I did this, I started losing weight. I got to about 207, and that's where I got plateau. And then after I started adding that morning routine, I went down to 195 right away.
Wow.
Yeah. And it wasn't a hard workout per se, because it wasn't that long. It just mentally you don't want to do it in the morning, but it's only hard on the first exercise. The second is a lot easier. Today I do about 12 to 15 different exercises early on in the morning. But that's how I started. I started with like 2 or 3. I didn't start with 15.
Right.
So today I'm better, but you see a major difference as soon as you start.
Yeah, you do like the cold plunges, and you have like a UV in your.
I have no, I don't have a cold plunge.
The red light.
I have the red light. Yes. So I bought those big panels. I saw them on the spa. I went to Restore Wellness. And I went actually to their headquarters. It's an amazing company. Amazing company. I saw they literally put science behind everything. They have a scientist working. She's teaching at Stanford. And she does all the clinical studies. They have a clinical study center in their headquarters. When I went to visit them, they were doing a clinical study to see what's better, to take an NAD IV.
I took that.
Or to do the NR, which that was basically a precursor for NAD, and they were let's see if the NAD IV actually gives you anything. Does the body any observe? Because
I don't think I noticed anything. I don't know.
So the idea is that let's see, because the precursor, they know it's working, but they wanted to see which one has better results, because it's a very painful experience to go with you have an autoimmune reaction when you take the NAD IV drips.
I had something. It felt like pressure all in my body.
That's common. That's supposed to be, because that is your immune reaction. And when you take the other one, you're not supposed to have that. Or the next one, from what I think they're going to do, is what happened when you take M&M, which is another precursor for NAD by peel. So it's interesting, right? But they really are putting science. So when I saw their panels, I mean, seriously, like red light, come on. She's like, no, it is. And she dropped a whole book of all the clinical studies about and the data about red light. And so I looked at the brand that they're using, and I just took a picture, and I got home and I bought those 2 big panels.
Nice. Yeah. Do you know what it does specifically?
It regulates your mitochondria. It's an interesting. But what I like about this is, as soon as you write anything, you type in MUT-C benefits or red light therapy benefits, you're gonna get all that information right there.
Nice, dude. Well, I think that is the actual end.
We did.
I think our producer, but we had to get that health aspect in, because I think that's crucial.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it, brother.
Awesome. Man.
Second ending.
Thanks.
Love it.
Shout out to Julian Banks. Yes, sir. And I am Big Snoop Dogg.